Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a really fascinating plunge into Anthropic.
Yeah, Anthropic, they're definitely a big name in AI right now.
You sent over a really compelling set of articles,
Mhm.
and they really paint a picture of an AI company doing things differently.
Right, it's not just about the tech. There's this strong current of safety and ethics running through it.
Exactly. So our mission in this deep dive is to unpack what makes Anthropic stand out.
Yeah.
That commitment to safer AI, their, internal culture.
And why it all matters, why you should care about how they operate.
Precisely.
And we've got a good mix of sources. There's a Cloud Wars piece looking at their leadership and safety and performance.
Mm-hmm.
A Reddit discussion showing what people actually think about their ethical stance. A report on their culture.
Oh, and that interview with Daniela Amadei about keeping that culture during, crazy growth?
Yeah, hypergrowth.
Yeah.
Plus stuff on their tech side. Interpretability research from Custom GPT, their whole constitutional AI thing from Marketing AI Institute.
Yep.
Their official mission from canvasbusinessmodel.com. Even a satirical piece from the EA forum.
Right, the funny one.
Yeah, poking fun at safety priorities. And a general overview from built-in, so pretty comprehensive.
Okay, great. So let's dive in. Let's unpack this, starting with the beginning, the origin story. What really set Anthropic on this path?
Well, what's really key, I think, is how they started. Founded in 2021, but by people who came from OpenAI.
Right, the Amadei siblings, Dario and Daniela, among others.
Exactly. And the big thing was they reportedly left OpenAI because of concerns about AI safety, about the direction things were heading.
So it wasn't just, let's start a new company. It was driven by this specific safety concern.
That's the narrative. Yeah, safety wasn't an afterthought. It was like the founding principle baked in from day one.
And that seems to show up in how they structured themselves too, right? As a public benefit corporation, a PBC. What does that actually mean in practice?
That's a really big deal structurally. Being a PBC means they have a legal obligation not just to make money for shareholders, but to provide a specific public benefit.
Which in their case is?
Safe and beneficial AI development. It's written into their charter, basically. It's legally binding.
Wow, okay.
And then there's this other layer, the long-term benefit trust, the LTBT.
Right, I saw that mentioned.
Yeah, it's this independent body meant to ensure the board always prioritizes the long-term benefit of humanity, even if big investors might want something else short-term.
So even though they've got huge backers like Amazon and Google, those investors don't have the final say if it clashes with the safety mission.
That's the idea behind the structure. It adds this layer of accountability that's pretty unusual in the tech world.
That is fascinating. And clearly it hasn't scared off investors, was it over $7 billion in funding since 2023?
Yeah, a huge amount, which really suggests that investors see value in this approach. Maybe they see the market demanding safer AI, or maybe they just see Anthropic's potential regardless. It's a strong signal either way.
Okay, so that sets the stage. This deep-seated commitment to safety. Let's dig into that more. How are they actually doing safety? It's obviously more than just talk for them.
Right, it's operational. And one of their flagship things is constitutional AI.
Okay, explain that. Is it like an actual constitution?
Sort of, yeah. Instead of just learning from human feedback, which can be messy, they train their AI models using a set of explicit principles, a constitution.
Where do these principles come from?
From sources like the UN Declaration of Human Rights, Apple's Terms of Service, things that codify generally accepted ethical ideas. The goal is to make the AI's values more transparent and, importantly, adjustable.
That's really different from just showing an AI millions of examples and hoping it picks up the right patterns.
Exactly. And then there's their responsible scaling policy, or RSP. This is a public commitment they've made. They basically say they won't train or deploy models past a certain capability level if they think they could cause, catastrophic harm unless they have specific safety measures ready.
And they have levels for this. You mentioned ASLs.
Yeah, AI safety levels. Think of them like biosafety levels for labs working with dangerous germs.
Okay, got it. BSL-1, BSL-4.
Right. Higher ASL means potentially more dangerous capabilities needing stricter safety protocols. And the reports say their models are getting close to ASL-3.
And ASL-3 means?
Potential capability to help, say, an unskilled person with tasks needing specialized expertise. Think maybe chemistry or biology risks, things like that. It highlights why these safety guardrails are so critical.
Yeah, that definitely puts the power of these things in perspective. And didn't Cloud Wars mention their Claude 3 models are harder to jailbreak?
Yes, significantly more resistant, apparently. Jailbreaking is, tricking the AI into ignoring its safety rules, so that resistance is a tangible output of their safety focus.
Makes sense.
Plus, they offer copyright indemnity for paying customers and boast about having low hallucination rates, the AI making stuff up. These things tackle real business risks.
Okay, so they have these external controls and training methods, but they're also looking inside the AI, right? This interpretability research. Why is that so important for safety?
This is maybe one of the most fascinating parts.
How?
They're heavily invested in trying to understand the how and why inside the AI's black box.
Peeking under the hood.
Exactly. One of the co-founders, Chris Olah, is a real pioneer here. They call it mechanistic interpretability, trying to map out the internal workings.
And they have tools for this, like an AI microscope.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. They're analyzing things they call features, clusters of neurons that seem to represent concepts like San Francisco or honesty.
Wow.
And the circuits, how these features connect to perform tasks. They've used techniques like dictionary learning to map neuron activity to human understandable concepts.
How many concepts are we talking about?
In Claude 3 Sonnet, they identified something like 10 million of these distinct features. Specific people, places, even abstract ideas.
10 million. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And the safety angle. How does knowing this help?
Well, imagine being able to monitor the AI's internal thought process in real time. You could potentially spot unsafe reasoning before it leads to a bad output.
Okay.
You could trace why it said something specific, check if its safety rules are holding up, or even audit it for, deceptive behavior. It's about building deeper trust and control.
That makes sense. I remember reading something about their research on chain of thought reasoning, too.
Yeah.
That it wasn't always reliable.
Right, that's crucial. Even if an AI gives you a step-by-step explanation for its answer, their research found that explanation might not actually match how it really got there.
So it could look like it's reasoning safely, but it's actually doing something else internally.
Potentially, yeah. Which is a big safety issue. You need to trust the process, not just the outcome. If the reasoning itself is misleading, even if it looks plausible, that's a problem.
Okay, so all this focus on safety and understanding must shape the actual AI models they build, the Claude family. What can you tell us about them?
Yeah, they offer a range: Haiku, Sonnet, and Opus. They position them directly against competitors like ChatGPT and Gemini.
Different tiers, I guess.
Exactly. Different balances of speed, intelligence, cost. So you can pick the right one for your needs. Haiku is fast and cheaper. Opus is the most powerful.
And they're good, performance-wise.
Apparently very competitive. The Claude 3 models, including the newer 3.5, get high marks for speed, smarts, and especially recall. Opus supposedly aced that needle in a haystack test, finding tiny bits of info in huge amounts of text.
Wow.
And they have cool features too, like computer use, where Claude can actually operate applications on a computer, do data analysis, manage files, almost like a human assistant.
So it definitely seems like they're managing to build really capable AI while focusing on safety. They're not sacrificing performance entirely.
That seems to be the goal, yeah. Responsible capability.
Let's shift gears a bit then. Talk about the company itself, the internal culture, the values. This sounds like another area where they're trying to be different.
Absolutely. Their mission statement says it all, really. To ensure the world safely makes the transition through transformative AI and building reliable, interpretable, and steerable AI systems. That mission really permeates the culture.
And there's specific values.
Things like integrity, excellence, collaboration, but also one called Hold Light and Shade.
Hold light and shade. What's that about?
It's about acknowledging both sides of AI, the incredible potential benefits, the light, but also the serious risks, the shade. It reflects that dual-use reality.
That's actually quite profound for a corporate value.
Yeah.
Shows they're not just cheerleading the tech.
Right, and internally they talk about fostering a high-trust, low-ego environment. Collaborative. They apparently call themselves ants, sometimes internally.
Ants, like working together.
Yeah, that kind of vibe. And they reportedly have good wellness benefits, focus on work-life balance. Daniela Amode really emphasized in that interview how crucial it was to define these values early and build hiring around them.
Especially with that hypergrowth they've experienced. How do you keep that culture from getting diluted when you're scaling so fast?
That's the challenge, right? They've had a culture fit in review from the start. But the reports also mention the usual growing pains: fast pace, some ambiguity, needing to constantly refine processes, It's tough.
You hear that a lot with fast-growing startups.
For sure. But the intention to preserve that mission-driven culture seems really strong, driven from the leadership down.
So how do these values show up in practice, beyond just internal culture?
Well, they did research looking at the values Claude expresses in conversations.
Oh, interesting. What did they find?
They found it often mirrors the user's values, but also frequently expresses things like professionalism, clarity, transparency, which aligns directly with their goal for Claude to be helpful, honest, and harmless. That triad is like a key performance indicator for them.
So they're actually measuring the AI's alignment with their principles.
Mm-hmm. And getting that ISO certification, the 42001 standard for AI management systems, that's external validation that they have processes in place for responsible development and risk management.
It seems like they're trying to walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Mm.
Okay, how does all this stack up against, say, OpenAI? We mentioned the origin, but what are the key differences now?
Yeah, beyond the founding split, there are ongoing differences. Anthropic, as we've said, has that explicit safety focus from the start, maybe seen as more cautious or measured in its development pace compared to OpenAI's sometimes perceived push for faster capability gains.
Different safety techniques, too.
Primarily, yeah. Anthropic leans heavily on constitutional AI, while OpenAI historically relied more on reinforcement learning from human feedback, RLHF, though both likely use a mix now. Anthropic's public commitments, like the RSP, also seem stricter to many observers.
And transparency.
Anthropic puts a big emphasis on their interpretability research, publishing findings. OpenAI has faced some criticism, fair or not, for becoming less open over time. It really feels like Anthropic is trying to build what some call a cultural moat.
A cultural moat, meaning?
Meaning their differentiation isn't just the tech, it's the whole package. The safety focus, the ethical framework, the transparency. They hope this attracts specific talent, partners, and builds public trust in a way that's hard for others to copy quickly.
That's a really interesting strategy. Building trust is a competitive advantage. Now, what about the general public? We saw the Reddit discussion source. What's the vibe there?
It's pretty mixed, as you'd expect online. You definitely see people who view Anthropic as, like, the good guys of AI. They appreciate the safety focus, the research transparency, especially compared to controversies elsewhere.
They buy into the cultural moat idea?
Some do, yeah. But there's also skepticism. Can any big company, especially one taking billions in investment, truly prioritize ethics over profit forever? That question comes up a lot.
Right. The PBC structure is supposed to help, but...
Exactly. And some worry the safety focus might be too cautious, that it holds back innovation and lets others race ahead. Plus, people have wildly different views on how dangerous AI actually is or how soon AGI might arrive, which colors how necessary they think Anthropic's level of caution is.
Yeah, and there's probably some general cynicism about big tech, too.
Oh, for sure. You see comments just pointing out they're still a corporation aiming to make money, regardless of the mission statement.
And that satirical piece from the Effective Altruism Forum, suggesting safety researchers should leave Anthropic.
Yeah, that was a funny one, an April Fool's joke, but it kind of cleverly jabs at the whole complex debate within the AI safety world itself. Like, can anyone really claim the safety high ground? Are current methods enough? It almost ironically mirrors Anthropic's own origin story of leaving somewhere else over safety concerns.
It highlights how complex and honestly contested this whole area is.
Yeah.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful, a real deep dive into what makes Anthropic tick. So wrapping up, what are the main takeaways for our listeners?
I think the biggest takeaway is that Anthropic is genuinely trying to carve out a different path in AI development. They're not just another lab chasing capabilities. Their origin, their PBC structure, the massive focus on interpretability, constitutional AI, it all points to a deep, systemic commitment to safety and ethics.
They're trying to build powerful AI, but do it thoughtfully.
Right. They're trying to make understanding and mitigating risk a core part of the process, not just a bolt-on feature.
And for you, listening, why does understanding Anthropic matter?
Because AI is becoming deeply woven into everything. Understanding how different companies approach its development, their values, their methods, their safeguards, is crucial. Anthropic's approach, especially their transparency around research and safety, offers a really valuable perspective, maybe even a model, for how responsible innovation could look in this field. It helps you ask better questions about the AI tools you use or might use in the future.
Okay, so as we finish up, here's a final thought for you to chew on. We know AI is incredibly powerful, with huge potential for good and for harm. And there's this constant tension between pushing innovation forward quickly and making sure we have strong safety measures in place. How do we, as a society, actually strike that balance? What's the right role for companies like Anthropic, who put such a heavy emphasis on the safety side? And where does the ultimate responsibility lie for ensuring AI is used beneficially? Is it mainly on the developers creating it, or is it more on us, the users and organizations deploying it in the real world? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.